some of the overreactions. Fire Brent Venables, fire Bill Bedenbaugh, fire Joe John Finley, fire DeMarco Murray, whoever you want to fire. I get it, okay? I get it. But hold your horses, because like I mentioned a moment ago, you can't fire him for what he's done in the past. You have to fire him right now for what he's doing right now. And this team is 5-1. Nobody is getting fired at 5-1. And if they were, it would be ridiculous. And that person making the decision to fire him, they should be called upon to be fired themselves. Okay? And I think anyone with a rational mindset is believing that if you fire someone after going 5-1, you better be fired yourself, man. Because like, what the heck are you thinking firing a 5-1 coach? We have to wait until the end of the season, regardless. Okay, I don't think that there's really a scenario. And like I said, maybe 5-5. All of a sudden, they come from 5-0 to 5-5. You want to fire Brent Venables now just to get it over with and start to look. Then sure, I'm open to that. But that's looking into the future and acting as if this isn't still the same team that went 5-0. The same team that Oklahoma fans were excited about, and looking at going 5-0. That's the same team that Oklahoma fans are freaking out about right now. Okay, so hold your horses. Nobody's getting fired at 5-1. And again, like I said, that would be ridiculous to fire your head coach or any coach at 5-1. Starting off with Brent Venables, he had this team feeling like they were really one step away from being able to win any game, and that was the run game. I don't think that the run game is going to get fixed this year. I really don't. I think there's ways to go about it. There's ways to maybe try to cope against the run game, and I don't think Oklahoma's going to win any championships because they don't have a run game. I really don't. I don't think Oklahoma can win any championships this season. I think they can be competitive, though. And I think they can walk away with still a good season ahead of them. I think that is what you look at from this season and say, you know what, if we can take a step in the right direction. And nobody was calling for Oklahoma to win a national championship this year. We want it. We're begging for it, but nobody's expecting that from Oklahoma this year. So we have to slow down on some of that talk. But we're going to talk more about the running game. But Brent Venables is not going to get fired for going 5-1. And like I said, if you let him start this season, you can't all of a sudden just go back to last season and say that's the reason why you should have been fired this season, okay? So we've got to hold off on that one. Bill Bedenbaugh. Bill Bedenbaugh's the other one that people are calling for to be fired. And, this offensive line is injured. One of the biggest pieces went down early in the game in Derek Simmons yesterday. And so I'm not going to pretend that we should just overlook everything that this offensive line has done, because Bill Bedenbaugh does need to be questioned about, hey, why are we not aggressive enough on the offensive line? I know that there's injuries, but why are we getting injured so much on the offensive line? Are we not teaching these guys the correct techniques to make sure that they're not getting rolled up on or whatever it is? Because I think that's what happened to Derek Simmons, getting rolled up on from behind. There is techniques that you teach them. And so I really don't have much of a defense for Bill Bedenbaugh. He does need to be questioned, no doubt. But one thing that I do want to look at is that Bill Bedenbaugh is bringing in some good guys. Michael Fasusi, Ryan Foje, just picked up a couple more in the 2026 or 2027 class. Probably both, really, if I go back and look. You got Caden Penny coming in, and then why am I drawing a blank on like three other great offensive linemen that Oklahoma has picked up? Cooper Hackett. So he's getting really good recruits right now, and that wasn't really happening before this last class. And those two guys that he got in this last class aren't really your main guys right now. Michael Fasusi kind of battling through some injuries. You only have two guys. Who is it? Luke Baklenko, and who else? I'm trying to think of who's not injured right now. You only have two guys at tackle right now. So you have to understand that that's hard to battle through. And so I'm not trying to defend Bill Bedenbaugh in that sense. I understand the frustration there because this offensive line is not what it used to be. Oklahoma was always known for their offensive line. They were. And so this offensive line has been atrocious for the last 2 or 3 seasons now. I would say the last 2 seasons, really, because 3 seasons ago, I think they were okay. They were manageable. Oklahoma was able to do some things. And so the last 2 seasons, though, it has been atrocious. And obviously in the SEC, you have to have an offensive line. You just as much as you have to have a defensive line, you have to have an offensive line. So I'm not going to sit here and act like that's a thing. And maybe it's a crazy way to think of it, but if you get rid of Bill Bedenbaugh, you don't get those big time recruits. And so do we hold off long enough to see if these big recruits and Michael Fasusi and Ryan Foje and then getting Cooper Hackett and Caden Penny, and if that's able to start to build something up, do we hope for that, or is it just we're done waiting and we have to get rid of them regardless of losing big time recruits? I don't know what the answer would be on that. That's kind of above my pay grade. And I understand people upset with a lot of the coaching staff. Bill Bedenbaugh being one, Joe John Finley being another one that's being thrown out there. I get it. It's another one that's hard to defend because of what the tight end position has done really since Braden Willis. It's been pretty subpar, and I think one thing is that we've seen some great improvements from the tight end room this season. And so I think Joe John Finley deserves some credit for that because Jaron Kanik, he is much improved throughout, and we're seeing even some things like his blocking. And I know you're going to call out the holding. I get it, but he's gotten aggressive on blocking, a lot more aggressive on blocking, and I see that. Has he been good at blocking? No, but I'm starting to see steps in the right direction there. But he still struggles in that room. But still, we have a playmaker in Jaron Kanik, and so I think Joe John Finley deserves something there. And he hasn't been targeted either, so that's been frustrating, and I don't think that really falls on Joe John Finley or Jaron Kanik. Caden Helms, he's shown some improvement that I don't think we've gotten to see on the field yet. Why is he not playing more? We can question that. Again, it goes back onto Joe John Finley. And right now, I feel like you've got three tight ends that are all good at something that the other one isn't. And it's hard to do something with that. And so does that fall on Joe John Finley? I guess that's for you to decide. Excuse me as I'm knocking a table over. I think that I can't defend Joe John Finley because I know that the tight end room has been atrocious here in the last several seasons. But I am seeing some improvements in that tight end room where I have to sit here and wonder. And then again, you get the recruits and how the recruits feel about Joe John Finley. And I don't know. I have a hard time defending Joe John Finley. I really do, and I'm not gonna lie about that. So when is it going to change? It needs to change right away, and this has to be the wake up call. Obviously, it was a long time ago, but it needs to be the wake up call to say, all right, we have to get Jaron Kanik better at blocking. We have to get Carson Kent better at running routes and catching the ball. We have to get Caden Helms, whatever we need to work on there and get him in the game. I'm not really sure because we haven't seen it on the field yet. And so whatever it is there in that tight end room, it has to be fixed. And so I agree, Joe John Finley needs to be put. He's already on the hot seat, guys. But again, like I said, you just can't fire your coaching staff when you're 5-1. You can't. DeMarco Murray's the other one. Again, I don't really have much of a defense for that. I'm not the type to call for coaches to be fired either, though, whenever I just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't understand what's going on with Taylor Tatum. That is a really confusing one to me because we know the talent that he has, but it just sounds like his mindset's not there. Do you blame DeMarco Murray for that? I don't. I blame in that situation. I think I'm blaming the player if that's the case, but I don't really know what's going on there because we don't really have true definitive reporting on what's going on there. I don't know. What else? Javonte Barnes. Why can we not get Javonte Barnes to do certain things the right way? Do you blame that on DeMarco Murray? I don't know. Maybe it's just the player not picking things up. And guess what? Javonte Barnes really hasn't played much this year. Maybe it's the frustration that we haven't been giving Jaden Ott enough carries. That maybe it's the frustration that Jaden Ott isn't picking up blocks or doesn't want to block. I will say, go back to the play yesterday that everyone's picking apart where Jaden Ott didn't pick up the block. That one definitely seemed like he was setting the edge for, I think it was Deion Burks coming around. And Deion Burks just cuts up field right into two defenders instead of going on the outside where he had open field and blocking. And so I don't blame Jaden Ott for that one. I think he was coming around and setting the edge on the outside. Go back and watch that. I know I'm right. And so that play I don't, but I do understand throughout the rest of the season we've seen it. And so that's definitely there. Do we blame DeMarco Murray for that, or is that just a Jaden Ott thing? Is Jaden Ott also nervous about that shoulder injury still? You still got to blame him and tell him like, hey, you've got to get over it. You just got to be smarter with how you're blocking. Don't block with your shoulder. Block with your hands. Be smart about where you're putting your body and how you're positioning your body. Xavier Robinson, why is he not getting the ball more? Why is he not getting more play time? Why are we putting him in basically at running back one? He wasn't. He was still kind of running back two. I saw where people were kind of calling him running back one just because I think he took the first snap, if I remember correctly. But he wasn't. He wasn't getting any snaps for himself. What are we doing there? I do know that the recruits and the players love DeMarco Murray. They feel like he's a good coach. He's also a coach that gets in there and runs the reps in spring practice and fall practice when his guys aren't able to get in there. And so, I think that it just tells me that maybe there's more to that story that we just don't know. And I don't know about DeMarco Murray. I really don't. And so I agree with the concerns. I just don't know the full story there. So bottom line, you just can't fire anyone after going 5-1 with one half not going your way. It was literally one half of football. If you go back and look at the stats, even the offensive stats, I was pretty content with the offensive stats in the first half outside of the turnovers. I was pretty content with the first half stats from this offense and from the defense. Obviously, the defense, holding them to only 3 points. So the second half was where everything fell apart. What was wrong in that second half? Why was there no energy coming out of the tunnel in the second half? That's what it falls down to. But you still have the second half of the season in front of you. You have to give them more than just one loss. Just because you lose one game does not mean you fire a coach. And I know it was Texas. You lost against Texas. You lost 3 out of 4 against Texas. You got blown out 3 out of 4 against Texas.